Good day, everybody. I'm going to read you an article titled Hillary Clinton Must Resign. Irresponsible warmongering leaves U.S. credibility irrevocably damaged. This is a article by Tony Cartalucci of the website Center for Research on Globalization. Well, the unhinged state of U.S. foreign policy is exemplified best by this week's Tremse Syria massacre. Before any confirmations could be made and based solely on activist accounts, Hillary Clinton penned a U.S. State Department statement that read, quote, I was deeply saddened by the outrage to learn of reports of yet another massacre committed by the Syrian regime that has claimed the lives of over 200 men, women and children in the village of Tremse. Credible reports indicate that this unconscionable act was carried out by artillery, tanks and helicopters. Indisputable evidence that the regime deliberately murdered innocent civilians. Syria cannot be peaceful, stable or democratic until Assad goes and a political transition begins. We called for an immediate ceasefire in and around Hama to allow the UN observer mission to enter Tremse. Those who committed these atrocities will be identified and held accountable. She went further on to say, as long as the Assad regime continues to wage war against the Syrian people, the international community must keep increasing the pressure on the regime to halt the violence and allow for a political solution to go forward. The Security Council should put its full weight behind the Annan plan for an immediate ceasefire and a political transition and make clear to the Syrian regime that there will be consequences for non-compliance. History will judge this council. Its members must ask themselves whether continuing to allow the Assad regime to commit unspeakable violence against its own people is the legacy they want to leave. The Security Council, of course, would be putting its full weight behind Kofi Annan's peace plan with Chapter 7 provisions in place, meaning that sanctions and military intervention, as it was in Libya, would be subsequently implemented. What U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton attempted to do was propose a UN Security Council resolution authorizing military intervention, and by consequences, long sought after regime change, then used fabricated reports to sell the resolution in the court of global public and diplomatic opinion. It constitutes that an overt crime against peace and conspiracy to wage aggressive war, both Nuremberg offenses. Tremse was a battle, not a massacre. As the facts emerge as to what really happened in Tremse, it becomes evidently clear that U.S. State Department, along with its British, French, and Australian counterparts, has attempted to sell yet another NATO war of aggression based on a patently false pretext. The New York Times, in article New Details of Battle Challenge Reports of a Syrian Massacre, reported that activists, the so-called Free Syria Army, and the Western-backed Syrian National Council all gave conflicting reports. What could be verified by UN monitors who arrived at the scene is that the vast majority of those massacred were men of fighting age, with some opposition, figures conceding that they were indeed militant fighters. The number 200 that Clinton cited was actually the number of militants that had gathered in Tremse to plot the next leg of their terrorist activities. Locals had passed the information to the Syrian army, which surrounded the area and neutralized fighters. During a pitched battle, the FSA ultimately lost. Not only that, but the UN confirms that Syrian security operations targeted specific rebel locations, rendering Clinton's accusations that the government forces deliberately murdered innocent civilians a bold-faced lie. In other words, Hillary Clinton falsified her statement given before the entire international community, what she always does, the bitch, claiming 200 men and women and children were deliberately massacred when in reality it was the Syrian military restoring order in the face of the armed terrorists, namely the Free Syrian Army, which is bloody backed by all the fucking foreign bastards who want to take it over. After the military secured the Tremse area, they put on a display a vast cache of weaponry found in the area, as well as captured FSA militants, including both Turkish and Libyan fighters, meaning that those not killed in the fighting were not executed as earlier reports falsely stated. The generation preceding the Hillary Clintons, those of World War II, swore never again to the tragedy of that global conflict. They also swore never again to the lies and manipulations that maneuvered millions of peoples across the globe into a deadly conflict with one another, all sponsored by one banking family, of course. Hillary Clinton's fabrication and attempts to foist yet another war constructed upon falsehood betrays that promise made, and thus betrays and jeopardizes the very foundation of all the West stands for. Hillary Clinton, to continue in her capacity like the entire Bush administration before her, compromises and forever stains the credibility and integrity of the United States. It is ironic that the very violence unfolding in Syria today, which Clinton would have the world believe is the work of the Syrian regime, was first blueprinted and orchestrated by the U.S. during Bush's term in office. Indeed, according to Seymour Hersh's 2007 New York article, The Redirection, the U.S. and Israel and Gulf states despots plotted to assemble and unleash a front of sectarian extremists to overthrow the government of Syria. It was during that time that the Syrian Muslim Brotherhood began receiving funding and support from the West, while fighters and weapons were assembled in northern Lebanon under the watch of Saad Hariri. Not only has the Barack Obama administration, with Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State, inherited and perpetuated this violent conspiracy against the Syrian people, it has inherited and perpetuated this honor and straining of America's remaining integrity and global goodwill. For America's economy, which cannot shoulder another military adventure, for America's honor, which cannot find space to fit another skull, Hillary Clinton must resign, and Congress and throughout the industry must remove support for those squandering the last of America's once vast potential in a pursuit of a global hegemony. Surely Clinton's resignation would be more symbolic than a serious blow to a system that is in reality driven by corporate financier interests from amongst their think tanks, lobbying networks, and media empires, but it would be the beginning of a new paradigm that signaled the days of impunity of these special interests drawing to a close. For the people of America, who most likely will not witness their Secretary of State resign in the wake of disgrace and irreparable damage she has brought upon her nation, now more than ever, they must be resolved to identify, expose, boycott, and replace the corporate financier interests for whom Hillary Clinton works. We as a people must begin creating our own local institutions that serve our interests directly and begin engaging in real wrench-turning activism in place of our current domesticated consumerist attitude toward politics and progress. I mean, picket signs, of course. That's the end of the article, of course. But yes, picket line bullshit does not work really. It needs to be bloody action. It needs to be bloody mobs. We're walking right into a place, knowing for sure, I mean, you know, it's all refinement. All the evidence is there to back that a lot of the people that are in Congress or in Parliament, say here in Canada, that they are criminals and that they are treasonous and that they are selling out their own countries for, as the article said, financier interests and bloody banking interests. I mean, if we know these things and we, you know, get together in a mob, fucking push our way through, you know, let's say 100 people walking into Parliament or something, and just raping and taking that person away, not actually raping him, just pushing our way through there. I mean, cops are going to stop us. Right. But anyway, good day. And fuck the Queen.